And so, Nagarjuna points out, it would be odd to think that an entity not dependent upon the aggregates in samsara would come to be so upon entering nirvana. It would, of course, be particularly odd for someone defending the target of this critique. Anyone holding such a position would hardly be expected to ascribe to the Buddha a more dependent status in nirvana than in samsara. 7. There is no appropriation. There is no appropriator. Without appropriation, how can there be a Tathagata? The appropriation here is the appropriation of aggregates as one's own. Without it, there can be no sense of individual identity. Since the opponent is positing the Tathagata as an inherently existent individual, he must hold him to have his own aggregates. 8. Having been sought in the fivefold way, what, being neither identical nor different, can be thought to be the Tathagata through grasping? But, as we have seen in the first 2 verses of this chapter, there is no way that the Buddha can be thought of as inherently existent in relation to those aggregates. So we can't divorce the Buddha from the aggregates. Nor can we understand the Buddha as inherently existing given that he must have aggregates.
9. Whatever grasping there is does not exist through essence. And when something does not exist through itself, it can never exist through otherness essence. So the Buddha does not exist inherently in virtue of his own essence. Nor does he exist inherently in virtue of some property of his aggregates or, for that matter, in virtue of anything else that is other, such as an inherently existent Buddha nature or state of nirvana. 10. Thus grasping and grasper together are empty in every respect. How can an empty Tathagata be known through the empty? So we must conceive of the Buddha and of all that pertains to him as empty of inherent existence. But the question then arises, what can we say or know of such an empty Buddha? This is a fundamental question not only with regard to our knowledge of the nature of enlightenment, but also with regard to our ability to say anything coherent about emptiness itself and empty phenomena.
11. Empty should not be asserted. Non-empty should not be asserted. Neither both nor neither should be asserted. They are only used nominally. This negative tetralemma is a crucial verse for understanding the relation between discourse on the conventional level and the understanding of emptiness or the ultimate truth. Nagarjuna has been urging all along that ultimately all things are empty. It would be easy to interpret him to mean that from the ultimate standpoint, we can say of phenomena that they are empty. But here he quite deliberately undermines that interpretation, claiming instead that nothing can be literally said of things from such a standpoint. For ultimately there is no entity of which emptiness or non-emptiness can be predicated. Nor can we say that things are neither empty nor non-empty. For that would contradict the fact that from the standpoint of one using conventional language and cognition, it is correct to characterize phenomena as empty. The central claim in this verse is that all assertion, to the extent that it is true at all, is at best nominally true. Discourse about the ultimate character of things is not exempt from this generalization. Predication always requires an entity of which the predicate can be true, and the emptiness of phenomena guarantees that from the ultimate standpoint, there are no phenomena to be empty. The language is hence at best only ostensive. The next verse generalizes this observation. 12. How can the tetralemma of permanent and impermanent, etc., be true of the peaceful? How can the tetralemma of finite, infinite, etc., be true of the peaceful?
13. One who grasps the view that the Tathagata exists, having seized the Buddha, constructs conceptual fabrications about one who has achieved nirvana. Here Nagarjuna returns to the problem of ascribing inherent existence to the Buddha in the context of thinking about phenomena from the ultimate standpoint. The problem is that, as Nagarjuna has argued above, the only grounds for asserting the inherent existence of the Buddha would be on the grounds of the inherent existence of the aggregates and some view about the relations of the self to the aggregates. And we have seen that to be untenable. Moreover, since upon achieving nirvana, on most Buddhist doctrine, one ceases to identify a self and aggregates, it would follow that upon achieving nirvana one would cease to exist. This is doubly problematic. On the one hand, it forces one to see nirvana as complete annihilation, which doesn't make it look quite so attractive. On the other hand, it forces the conclusion that the Buddha is either not in nirvana, since he exists, which is paradoxical in that Buddhahood should guarantee nirvana, or that he both exists, as a genuine Buddha, and does not exist, in virtue of being in nirvana, which is contradictory.
14. Since he is by nature empty, the thought that the Buddha exists or does not exist after nirvana is not appropriate. Nagarjuna here draws on the results of XXII 11:12 to point out that one can evade all of these paradoxes by simply rejecting the language of existence and non-existence when these are read inherently. Empty things exist conventionally, but about their ultimate status, nothing can be literally said. Of course, we can say that the Buddha is empty and, hence, neither really existent nor completely non-existent. But that, Nagarjuna is arguing in this chapter, can be only understood in a purely negative sense. The ultimate nature of things is perhaps shown by it, to use a Wittgensteinian metaphor, but cannot be said in this language. 15. Those who develop mental fabrications with regard to the Buddha, who has gone beyond all fabrications. As a consequence of those cognitive fabrications, fail to see the Tathagata. To see Buddhahood for what it is to see things as a Buddha sees them, one must see things independently of the categories that determine an ontology of entities and a dichotomy of existence and non-existence. That this is inconceivable to us, for Nagarjuna, only indicates the fact that we are trapped in conventional reality through the force of the delusion of reification. But we can, through using the Madhyamaka dialectic, come to see the nature of our predicament, the possibility of transcending it, and even the nature of that transcendence. That, however, requires us to acknowledge the merely nominal character of conceptual imputation.
16. Whatever is the essence of the Tathagata, that is the essence of the world. The Tathagata has no essence. The world is without essence. This crucial final verse emphasizes again the lack of any fundamental nature of entities. Emptiness is the final nature of all things, from rocks to dogs to human beings to Buddhists. This fact entails, for Mahayana philosophers, the possibility of any sentient being to be fundamentally transformed to attain enlightenment. But this is so, paradoxically, because ultimately there is no fundamental transformation, because there is nothing to transform. In chapters 24 and XXV below, we will see the dramatic consequences of this line of reasoning.